So our theme this month is integral freedom. And integral freedom is about finding heaven on earth, about discovering all the freedom, all the love, all the joy, all the bliss right here, that we don't have to. Traditionally, in many, the spiritual path was about leaving this world, about going off to a mountain or to an ashram or to a monastery, someplace off, and transcending this world, moving beyond this world, giving up this world. And even if you stay in the world, giving up any desires for anything of this world, to be an ascetic, to live in a spare bedroom with limited things, because we're supposed to be free. Integral freedom is about integrating all of... There's a little buzz on this, yeah. Integral freedom is about finding that same freedom, that same love, that same bliss while we're right here on this planet and still enjoying the material world, but not being limited by it. The very first principle in the science of mind or New Thought is God is in, through, and as all creation, and yet never absorbed by it. And that's what we are. We are this life of God. So we are in, through, and as all creation. We can enjoy all form, but we never want to get absorbed by it. We don't want to get stuck in it. And so that's what integral freedom is about, being able to play and dance in this world, grow and evolve in this world, but not getting stuck in this world. Being free, unlimited, bliss-filled. So when Emily was reading from Testimony of Light, one of the ways to read that book, she talks a lot about what it's like to be on the other side of the veil, but we can always read it. What would it be like to live this way here, on this planet, at this time, now? To live that freedom, to live that state of incredible possibility. She was talking about having a freer and wider angle. Well, that's what we're working and evolving towards on this planet. And part of that today's topic is conscious communication. For me, the way we integrate that transcendent with what's happening here is through communication. If you're just in that transcendent state, if you're in the absolute ultimate bliss, there's no need for communication anymore. But as soon as we start coming into form, we have this incredible variety and diversity, and we need to start communicating with one another, and there's obviously many ways to communicate, but we're all one. We're one with the Palestinians and the Israelis, the Syrians, the Ukrainians, the Russians. We're one with the people in the middle of our country, the square states, who seem often very different than us on the coastal world. We're one with everyone in our family. Any place where we see we're other, we're not. We're one with all of it. And so the idea is, what we see in our world, if we just look out there, is how hard it is to communicate well, which is why there's so much violence, why there's so much war. And then we can just look at our own life and see how hard is it. As soon as I said conscious communication, I have to tell you, the first thing that came up for me was all the times I don't do conscious communication and all the judgment, like, wow, I could just be so much better at this. And I thought, well, I wonder if other people have that sense of, with conscious communication, this idea that we fall so short of it. I've never been in a spiritual community, and this is in businesses, this is in all sorts of organizations, but including spiritual. We need better communication. We need to communicate better. We need to find a better way to do this. And it's always about communicating better. So which means we're always not quite enough on how well we're communicating. And we have conflicts and we have challenges. So we have people who have developed skills about how to communicate better. Marshall Rosenberg created a system called nonviolent communication. Is anyone familiar with nonviolent communication? Great. And I was in a spiritual community where some of my friends had not only taken the workshops, they became trainers of nonviolent communication. And it was interesting, though, because what I found was they were some of the worst communicators in our community. In fact, I even said that to one of them. I said, "You're so aggressive when you talk. I don't get that." And what she said to me was, "Well, when I'm doing the workshops, I communicate differently, but in regular life, I just don't know." And I thought, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. But then I thought, don't we do that with everything? I meditate in the morning and can commune with God, but the rest of the day, I don't really try to be still. I have too much to do. I have too much activity. There's no place for stillness in the rest of the day. And when we actually start hearing ourselves talk about how we are sort of boundary off, section off certain aspects of our life. Well, I do that here. I do my spiritual practices here, but I don't practice it there. And the integral is about bringing it into all aspects of our life. So this communication, and that, why is this communication so difficult? The communication is so difficult is because what brings us to earth is our attachments and our desires. We come here with an incredible energy and intention of wanting certain things in our life. Most people, 98% of the people, come on this planet with some sort of agenda for themselves to get, and very clear what they don't want. And so our communication, immediately we're talking with people who may have a completely different agenda. So they may be blocking our desires, so they're annoying and frustrating because they're blocking my agenda. I want to have a peaceful, loving community, and they're not giving to it, and they're not responding the way I want them to, and it's irritating me. You know, we can have those blocks, or we can have someone who takes away. You may lose a job, you may lose a relationship that you wanted to be, and you feel like you have no choice. I have an agenda to have this relationship, but this person doesn't want to be in it. So communication then becomes this is where it all becomes so tricky. It's very nice to have these techniques. But the reason why, even for people who learn the techniques, it's difficult is because we have all this stuff that we want. And it really hit me was when a friend of mine worked for a gentleman who was working with corporations to get win-win. And so he was teaching staff how to get to this win-win solution. And this, if you're maybe familiar with Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of a Highly Effective People, and win-win is one of the intentions. And this is really shifting the energy of our planet, which is win-lose, that one person wins and one person loses. And I actually think those women who had been trainers of nonviolent communication, the reason why they fell back into these old patterns is because they deeply believed in win-lose. So you can learn all the tools, but if you have a deep belief in win-lose, that one of us has to win here, it's very hard to use tools on top of that. So what we're here to do is change our ideas of win-win, that it is possible, that the universe is for everybody to succeed. It is here for all of us to win. And so we do that through communication, and we do that by deep listening. So I sat in on this workshop, and it was such a simple workshop. There was no emotional stuff going on. So this was probably the easiest way to do listening. He had everyone go off in pairs, and he had them, I can't remember, share something. The other person had to hear for 3 to 5 minutes, and then exchange, and then they went around the room and shared with everybody. It was amazing, and it amazed everyone in the room how bad people were at this. Just repeating what someone had said to them, had spent 5 minutes telling them about their life, and what they heard, the other person heard, was often so completely different. And our jaws would just drop, like, how did they get that from that? And that's when there's no agenda. That was when there's no emotional reaction. That's just people just talking. It is so hard to listen and hear what the other person is saying because we have our own perspective. Anyone who's done public speaking, art, movie, TV, whatever, books. We got in a book circle because we have so many perspectives of how when we read a book, we all think different things when we read a book. We have, if you're a speaker, people hear different things. I'll never forget, this hit me when I first started ministry. And I had been a minister about a year, and I was officiating for a couple, their wedding, and they were telling me what they liked about my talks. And this wasn't just one talk, it was like a year's worth of talks, and nothing they said resonated with me. And I thought, wow, that wasn't my intention for anything that I was doing, but they were hearing what they needed to hear. So when we speak or have general ideas, we learn to surrender. So that's what we need to differentiate. When we're communicating, our purpose, there's 2 different purposes. When I communicate up here, it's for people to just be a vehicle and allow people to receive whatever they need to receive. But if we're in a relationship and it's just one-on-one, I need to be intentionally care what it is that you want. This is the essence of nonviolent communication. Be clear what you want and be clear what the other person wants. So there's no hiding here, but a lot of times we submerge what we want if we're a people pleaser and we want to give the other person what they want, and we're very sort of deferring, and then we walk away sort of angry because we didn't get our needs met. Or we're really self-centered. I'm going to get what I want, and we're sort of don't really listen to the other person. A win-win is recognizing the divine energy within each of us, the Christ, the Buddha, the Atman within each one of us, and we talk and we really hear, what do you want, and how can I get what you want, and how can I get what I want? And this is where the idea of synergy comes along, and we read about this in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and Doug Kruschke used it as well, which is when you have two different people, new solutions come up that never would have come up if you were just on your own. So it may seem impossible, but the idea is when we start communicating and really listening and recognizing the divine presence is within us, and we really hear what the other person is saying and what we're saying, our heart stays open. What we'll notice is when we have an agenda and we want to be heard and we don't feel like we're being heard, we push a little bit harder and our hearts constrict. It's whenever that heart starts to constrict, I need to get what I want and I'm not getting what I want, so I push a little harder and my heart gets a little more closed. The hardest thing is to keep our heart open, and keep our heart open in the divine paradox of life. I was at Agape, and the ministers there, Reverend Michael and Reverend Nirvana, were passionately for nonviolence in all situations. They never used nonviolence. And this is at the beginning of email, speaking of communication. We all learn about learning how to communicate via email. That's a whole other thing. So we were new, and my brothers and I were also talking about the war in Bosnia. This was, I think, in the mid-90s. And then I was talking about nonviolence. Reverend Nirvana was in my office, and they were like, well, no, there's times where I would use violence. If someone's going to come and hurt my children, I'm going to stop. What they're doing over there is incredibly cruel, and I would stop and protect him. And then Nirvana was and he would stand in the nonviolent principle, no, there's never a place to use violence. And they were going back and forth, and my mind was just going, which one's right? Which one's right? Because I feel protective, but nonviolent. And that's when I really loved, and I was reading Zen Mind, Beginner Mind again, and that really held the divine paradox, that both are true. And the only way we can ever get to true win-win is if we can live in that divine paradox where two seeming opposite perspectives are both true. And that's what we're talking about in the integral perspective, that every perspective is partial truth. Every perspective has the infinite presence of God within it. There's no place where God is not. There's no place where God ends and there's something else. So when we listen to a completely opposite view that constricts our heart, there may be a reason, a good reason, if it's harsh and it's mean and it's cruel. But what we need to do is see, where's the God in there? That's our work to do. Where's the God? Where can I find the truth? Where can I find the light in this conversation? And that can be hard to do. And I have to be pretty awake, because if I'm reactive, if I'm triggered by what they're saying, I'll never see the light in them, and we're just going to leave in greater darkness. So the way we start bringing heaven on earth is we have to do so much work within ourselves. We need to be communicating with ourselves. How well do I communicate with myself? Do I listen to myself? Am I compassionate with myself? When I'm angry at someone else, am I listening to my own anger? I can't tell you how many times I've met with people and they're telling me about people aren't hearing them, or they think they're not getting what they need from relationships. And I'm saying, well, are you listening to what you need from relationships? Are you honoring and respecting? Respecting is another big aspect of love, by the way. Sometimes we love and don't respect. There has to be a respect for this person sitting across from me and this person right here. Do I respect what I need? Do I value what I need? Do I see and hear and know what I need? And that's such a big process in this process of communication. So not only are we listening to the other person, we really need to be listening to ourselves. And that's what I love about nonviolent communication, is it begins with, what do I want from this conversation? What's my intention? Is it just to connect? Do I want to feel loved? Do I not feel loved right now? Do I want to feel heard because I feel lonely and I feel isolated and I need to feel that connection? Do I need to feel valued and respected for something I've accomplished and I want to be acknowledged for that? What is it that I'm seeking in this conversation? Because that's where so much of this conflict starts coming up, is we're not honest with what we want. And we're not honest with what we want because we're not listening to ourselves. So I was thinking with this pairing that I saw, this corporation where they were doing the pairing and people were not hearing what the other person was saying. And I remember thinking, well, I wonder if the person who's saying what they are saying is actually listening to what they're saying. Like, I wonder if people really deeply know what it is I'm offering here in this communication, and maybe the reason why it's not being really heard is because I'm not really hearing what I'm saying. I'm just saying words. So conscious communication is about going deeper and deeper into ourselves, and deeper into this stillness, this silence. And then, of course, we can't have conscious communication without talking about the communication with the divine. And I think this is so essential in our very sophisticated spiritual world. I talk with so many people, and I ask them about God and its energy and its light and its flowing around. In Eastern tradition, especially Buddhism, it's an isness, it's a ground of all being. But there's not a relationship. And yet we're always in a relationship. We cannot be not in a relationship. So the question is okay, there's all this energy swirling around, there's light, there's love, there's beauty, there's harmony, but am I in dialogue with it? Am I communing with it? Is it something that's just happening to me? Or is there a flow, a back and forth flow that's happening? What I love about this book, Testimony of Light, and in Yogananda we see it too, that we're all in soul groups. Nobody here is alone. That's one of the things she was bringing, is that we have such an individual, our American or Western view is so individualized, but we're all part of these group souls. Last week I was talking about the 4 paths to God in Hinduism, but there's many ways we can identify. And when we start feeling it, and what I like is that she was pointing out, this is on the other side of the veil, but remember we apply it to here. That there's people who are ahead, who are always guiding us, who want our highest good. And this is the best part of the whole win-win idea, is that the universe wants our highest good, always. And the universe isn't some abstract idea. Now, if God isn't a living energy for you, and that's great. But for so many people that I talk to, it doesn't have a thing we can talk with. And so that's why we have all these beings of light that are here to communicate with us. They're here to help us grow. They're here in this room now. They're here, and they surround and are within each and every one of us in this room. And they're guiding us, and they're wanting us to wake up. There was something she wrote in that Testimony of Light, and I never caught it till this third time I read it, which is that the beings on the other side, that they want the veil to be thin. I always had this thought, well, we're supposed to forget about those other sides of the veil so we can focus on this world, because otherwise I get very distracted. And what I finally got was, no, I need to be in this world, but the veil is supposed to be thin. They are here to guide us. They do want us to hear. She was saying that she didn't like to use mediums or channels because it was very hard to connect with. She liked to talk to people directly. And she said there are beings on the other side of the veil who are always trying to get our attention, but we're not listening. And it's very frustrating. And so part of it is listening. We are so loved beyond our wildest imagination, not in an abstract way, but in a very personal and intimate way. Each and every one of us, we are personally loved. And those beings of love are just rooting for every aspect of your being to grow, to expand, to be healed, to be loved, to experience a self-expression beyond your wildest imagination. But we can't access it if we're not listening. Conscious communication. It is so hard to do externally if we're not doing it internally. There's the guy who taught nonviolent communication. His name is Kelly Bryson. And I was racking my brain this morning, and I emailed a friend, and I didn't get back to it in time because I couldn't remember his stories. But all I know is that he was someone who lived nonviolent communication. So I had these trainers who were still in this win-lose situation, and they would use these tools, what they were supposed to do. But then there was someone who just embodied it. And he was telling me and he would use it with his daughter, and he would tell these stories. And it was just so heart-opening because he so deeply believed, you could hear it when he talked. He so deeply believed in the core of his being that there was a possibility for a win in every conflict that he was in, whether it was with his child, whether it was someone at work. I remember he was working with his Israelis, and there was this conflict. And as he was telling the story, that's what I was trying to remember, and I couldn't remember. But I just remember thinking, there's no way you can get to a win-win with this. But he so deeply believed it, and says it out loud. That's key. Do you believe that we can get to a win-win here? Because we need both people participating in this process. If only one person's doing it, then you have to find a win for yourself. which often happens if a relationship ends or work leaves. We find the win in that and continue on. But if we're verbally saying, can we get to a win-win, and you're willing to stay in it, stay in the discomfort, stay in this conflict. I posted this quote on my wall on Facebook yesterday because I thought it was so great. Pain, there's always pain in change. Change is very difficult. But what's way more painful is staying stagnant, is staying the same. And so when you're with somebody and you're in this conflict and it seems like one of you has to lose, can you just stay in it that much longer? And that becomes an incredibly creative and fertile place to be in that uncomfortability, but you'll grow. Both of you will grow and have new solutions that you can't even imagine. And then, of course, when things happen to you, when you don't have an option, when jobs are taken from you, relationships taken from you, money, health is a big one. What do we do? And over again, we hear that we don't look at it as failures. Spirit is never failing. We find the good in it. We find the blessings in it. I have my brother, as I'm really thinking about what it means to be a leader, he's the head of, executive director of DC Water in Washington, D.C., and there's billions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of employees, and he's really, to me, been a brilliant leader. He does transparency, communication. So anytime, this is the sewer water system. So anytime the water bills are going to go up. In the past, they've just sent someone from the business to go out to the town, to the community and saying, we're raising your prices. But now he goes as the executive director, and he goes to all the town hall meetings. There are times where he's had to have bodyguards taken to his car because people are so angry. But he stays, and he listens, and he feels all the rage come at him, and he stays. And I've listened to him on public radio, and all the people, he's starting a new program, and people giving all their different perspectives. And yes, I hear what you're saying, and he always sees the value in whatever the opposite point of it is. He'll point out the value in what they're saying, and he'll say his point. And I thought, wow, this is great leadership. He's mastered this. And I remember being struck in a conversation I had with him. He said, well, I've just recently learned how to be a leader. And that shocked me because, to me, in my family, I always saw him as a leader. He was captain of the safety patrol in elementary school. He's president of his school in high school, president of his club in college. He's always taking over and running whatever he was in. So all these years later to say he's just learning what it is to be a leader. And there was so many quote-unquote failures. And he says, I don't see them as failures at all. I just see those were things I needed to learn. I'm doing exactly what I need to be doing, and everything that happened had to happen. And he said, even as that was happening, even as they were happening, that's what I would tell myself, oh, well, this obviously wasn't supposed to be that way. And I would just let it go. I didn't get all upset about it. I didn't sit there and just say, oh, I've failed. He said, oh, this is just part of my process of winning, because I just think I'm going to win, meaning I'm going to do well. And that's true for everyone here. We're all going to do well. We're all going to succeed, and have to have that deep belief that everything that happens, all the things that get taken from us, our health, our relationships, our jobs, our money, whatever, is just is on the journey to greater growth, to greater love, to greater joy, to greater peace. It's what we tell ourselves. Our thoughts over and over. We see in our testimony of light and new thought principles how we talk to ourselves about our events, our divine communication. How are we seeing it? Are we in a place of divine communication where we know we're loved, even when everything is taken away, even if we feel rejected by everybody else? Do we know we're still completely loved? And that only way we know that is if we take time to nurture that relationship. Conscious communication. The way to have heaven on earth, the way to have integral freedom, is to start really learning to communicate with ourselves and with the world around us, and obviously with our divine beloved, first and foremost. So this week, I want you to be aware of that. I want you to be aware of how much am I communing with this energy. Am I having a conversation? Do I feel any presences around me that are of my soul group? I may not even know what my soul group is. Helen Greaves was always going to another soul group because she just found them interesting. But she clearly wasn't belonging there. And they said, just open up to the light. Open up to the light and ask, where's my soul group? Where's my soul group? And then she said, as soon as I started doing that, I realized it had always been there. I just hadn't opened up to it. Your soul group is with you right now. It's right now wanting you to hear and feel and know what your next step is for your greatest good. Accept that love. Be in communion with that love. It is communicating. It's not just presence with no communication. It's not just energy. It's communicating. And it's communicating to you directly. You don't need any intermediaries. It's communicating directly into your heart. So this week, be in your heart space. Am I feeling those direct communications? Am I in communication with it? Am I in communication with myself? Am I in communication with my own wants and needs? What do I really want? Not what I think I should want, but what do I really want? When I'm in every communication that you have, what's my intention behind this communication? I was thinking even after church, when we're talking with each other, just have that thought, well, what am I wanting to get from this conversation? Am I just wanting to connect? Am I wanting to feel oneness? Or do I have something else that I want? Start becoming more clear in all your communications at work, with your family. Conscious communication. What do I want from this communication? What am I bringing to this? And lastly, what does the other person want? Am I conscious what that other person wants? Am I willing to ask them, what do you want right now? Is there something you want? And I have a minister friend, and that's always actually how he starts this conversation. What can I do for you? How can I serve you? And it's always sort of off-putting. It's like, what do you want? I'm here to serve. I'm here to give to you what you want. And I have to think, oh, what do I want? Why did I call you? I was just going to say, hi, how you doing? But it always makes me stop. What do I want? So when you're talking with someone, you might not be comfortable asking them. They might just want money because they're at the cash register asking you for money because you're buying a Starbucks coffee. But what do you want right now? You got to ask ourselves, right? And so that's how we're bringing heaven on earth. That's how we're living this integral, free life, is to be this energy of unconditional love for ourselves and for our fellow beings, and recognize that we all deserve to win. Everybody here deserves to win. We are a win-win world. No one gets to lose. We all get to win. Yeah? Yes. That's right.
I was looking on here if you changed it.
I didn't know, sorry. Wait, we don't have time. Yeah?
What you really said. Not just win-win, but win-win-win, where the third win is the relationship winning, the world winning.
Yeah, I like that.
And you really said that. But,
You're clarifying it, yeah. I
Yeah,
like that.
so it was having the mindset, literally an intention, a new idea might come out of this conversation that is nothing like what you said.
Yes, that's exactly it, George. So he was saying that it's a win-win-win, because something completely new starts to emerge for both of you that would have not happened if you hadn't had this I want my thing, you want your thing, and we keep working and something completely new happens for both of us. So that's the collective win, the we space.
There's a real shift in thinking to have that mindset.
Yes, it is. Thinking and believing, because again, going back to those women who had done the training, they had the thinking, but they didn't have the deep belief. And that's what we're here to alter this week, is to really say, do I really believe that I want everybody to win? Do I really want everyone to win? Or do I have some people, my favorites, that I want to win? Yeah, there's me. Or do I even think it's possible? That's the deepest one. I think actually when we get into the win-lose conversation or win-win, the first thing we're going to really start to be with is abundance. Because I think lack starts to come up. There's not enough for both of us to win. And to feel the abundance of God, and that there's enough good in this universe for both of us to win. So notice if you start feeling a little lack in those communications, that only one of us, there's only enough.
You know, I've done those kind of things a few times, and I've had those win-win conversations and listening and what does he say. Another part of that is you seek first to understand.
Right.
Everybody wants to get their point across.
Yes.
I want you to know what I'm thinking.
Yes.
What I want. We're like, okay, what is it you want?
Right.
First.
Yes.
Right? Listen to what you want before I make you clear what I'm telling you something. That's a really hard thing to do.
It really is.
To make.
That's right, it is.
Very difficult to do.
You're right.
Shut up and
Seek first to understand before being understood. Right. And that takes, again, that inner peace. Because if generally what we want, our heart starts racing. So what we want is we can give to ourselves. So this is an incredible spiritual practice. because we stop needing so much externally because we start feeling it, and then we can have the peace to listen to somebody else, to really understand them, because I'm not so restricted. And then when I am restricted, what happens when we're restricted, when I'm feeling, where I am reactive, where I am charged, then what do? Like, I'm really, this is not working for me, this conversation, I'm feeling attacked, or I'm not getting what I want, and they're blocking something, and they're not willing to go somewhere. What do we do then? We get angry and worried.
Shut down and
We
leave.
constrict, or we just give over to say, oh, you can have what you want. What? Defensive?
It's time to go inside and surrender all of that angst and really focus. Perhaps the angst is the result of you not listening to yourself.
You listened. Yes, that's true. That's true. So what she was saying is so that's the healthy way. So we have the unhealthy ways that we all do. So I just want to say that part of this is we get so perfectionist oriented, and then we get so that even the perfectionism can constrict us. So let's stop trying to be perfect, but be gentle and compassionate. And so we have a reaction, and we didn't react the way we wanted to, or we catch ourselves. But the best thing then is to pull ourselves away and do our inner work with the divine beloved and with ourselves, to really find where we are and and listen to ourselves and do that healing work with our divine beloved. And then we find when we can come back to that conflict. And if they've done their work, that's even the best. If they also are on the process of doing work, and we come back and we work together, it's incredible. I remember when I worked at Agape, that would happen. We would pull away. We all had practitioners on the staff, and we do our work, and we come back and talk about it. And then when I left Agape, I was at my mom's house just working at a daycare center. And oh my gosh, these women, and I thought I had forgotten that the world was like that. Like, people didn't do their inner work, and they didn't have these conversations. And I would try to have these conversations, and they had no idea what I was talking about. And then I would take all this responsibility. They go, "Yeah, it was you," and I'd walk away. I'm like, okay. So the part of being in our community is doing our own work, and supporting one another. And then there's going to be people in the world who don't do their work. So we just have to find that freedom in ourselves. Be the example. That was great, Paula. Any other thoughts or questions? All right. Well, let's pray then. Let's pray to that divine beloved in the infinite and eternal one power and one presence. Does anyone feel that presence of the divine beloved? Like, when I say divine beloved, is that have no resonance, some resonance, a little? You do? You feel the presence? You feel it? And it could be anything. Oh, let me just say this, because this is Martin Rossman was at. It's about the divine beloved. He was a doctor of internal medicine, and he got into inner guidance to do healing work, and the stories of healing are amazing. But he worked with every type of person across every belief system, so he never had it be a spiritual thing. He just called it your inner advisor, and he'd take you into this inner process and see who the inner advisor. And he said for some people it was Jesus or Mary or Buddha, but he said for other people it was a dog, or it was a gremlin, or it was a piece of nature that would start talking and communing with him. He said it didn't matter what the image was. It was perfect for each and every individual coming, and the healings were perfect for each and every individual. So when I say divine beloved, I want to open up that context, that for some people that may have a traditional connotation, but for other people it may have a completely different. Allow whatever images come up for divine beloved. The idea is that you just open your heart, and as I've always said, it has to have two qualities. It has to be infinitely intelligent and infinitely loving, unconditionally loving. And whatever image comes up for you, to feel commune, to feel unconditionally loved and infinitely known through wisdom, that image is fine. That's your divine beloved. That's where you can feel safe and trusted. Okay, so now let's turn within to that energy of divine beloved energy. Because everyone in this room is safe. Every one of us is completely taken care of. There is no need for fear, because there is nothing other than love in this room. And that each and every one of us is surrounded and enfolded by this pure, infinite, oceanic energy of light and of love, of harmony, of beauty, of intelligence, of creativity, of abundance, of goodness. And that these qualities of God reveal themselves through beings of light. Whatever that looks like, whatever those images are, they are here to serve us. Those images are here to serve us now. And so we allow ourselves to open our hearts and be loved and embraced and enveloped and protected and guided. That we are resting in the everlasting arms of pure spirit even now. Nobody is on their own. Nobody is isolated. Nobody lives on an island. There is only one. There is only one. There is only one. And it is who and what we are right here and right now. In this room, there is only one. There is only light. There is only love. And we are each seen on our individual paths and are guided and protected on our own individual paths, even as we are guides and directors of other people on their paths, that we are this wonderful, wonderful, incredible spiritual journey of ever-awakening good, of ever-awakening love, and that those areas of our lives that we feel need healing, a revealing of God's presence, whether they're in our physical life, our emotional life, our intellectual life, our financial life, our work life, our relationship life, we call in forth now all the love and all the necessary help and guidance that we need right now. We don't limit what that help looks like. We just open our heart. We open our heart. We open our heart and we feel and see and allow that guidance to come through. It is wanting us to hear it. It is wanting us to feel it. It is wanting us to see it. And so in this moment, we say yes to that guidance here and now. And we allow it to overflow in every area of our heart and our body and our mind and our soul. It's washing over us even now. We are washed in unconditional love. And as we go forth into our week this week, we feel that overflowing of love and peace and harmony and joy. We feel the divine has given all of its gifts to us already. We feel and we know it. We are anchored in all our wants and needs already being met by this divine beloved. In every conversation we have, we are a conversation of light. We are a conversation of harmony and beauty, of peace. We are not here to get what we want because it's already been given. We are in the overflow of givingness, of generosity, of kindness, of gentleness, of listening, of wisdom, of grace, and that we are in this divine dance with our fellow travelers on this planet, and every level of communication is uplifted this day, this week, by our presence, by our conscious awareness, by our conscious communion with the divine, and we carry that into every relationship, and we are open, and we allow new ideas, new ways of being, new solutions to old problems to reveal themselves. For this is a new heaven and a new earth, and we allow that newness to reveal itself. We allow ourselves, even in those places where it's uncomfortable, we keep our heart open. We allow our energy to stay open. We trust. We have faith. We live in safety and grace and care. We are never being judged. We are never being put down. We are never being repressed. We can feel safe and open as children and allow all that good to come forth in whatever those places that seem dark or scary or those things that we want seem be taken away from us. We trust, we open, and there we are, heaven on earth. We are both the receivers and the givers. We are both the revealers and the receivers of pure spirit, of pure light, and that is the truth here and now. And so for the divine presence that is alive and awake in this room, as everyone who hears my voice right now, I just say thank you. Thank you. Thank you. In a deep abiding gratitude, I just let this